And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquala, and welcome. Welcome to another round of the Conscious Roster Report here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, livinginblack.com. Simulcasting as we do daily on our Rumble account. We are today on YouTube, on Facebook Live, as well as on our TuneIn app. You can always go to the front page of LIB Radio and see what we're doing. Today's date is Friday, the first day of August 2025 in the Western calendar. This corresponds to the year 6226 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and on livinginblack.com. It's great to have you with us today. It's great to be with you in your face, just like your mama always warned it was going to be. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV, and we wish you all peace and prosperity today. It is a pleasure to be with you today here on the first day. We declare we reset our Kemetic calendar 6226 or 6. Boy, my brain is drawing a blank right. 6266, I believe the year is. I'm going to get that right now. Right now, according to we've realigned our clock. Let me double check real quick. According to, where am I at? Let me try this one up here. According to the Kemetic calendar, what year is it today? And that will be answered. The Kemetic calendar, and that is the year. Give me a second. And we are live on LIB Radio. It's a pleasure to be with you on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and on livinginblack.com. Let me just hook up all of our signals for our show today. And we are live and direct, 3D digital. According to the Kemetic calendar, what year is it today? Answer the question. I'm thinking 6266. Be corrected here real quick. The Kemetic calendar is it says the current year is 424, and that's not even close to right. So I'm going to get it right here in just a little bit. Let me get that on for you tomorrow. But for today, we've got a very, very interesting discussion. I hope you do enjoy the conversation today. And 6266, because we're 4,240 years ahead of the Gregorian calendar. So that would be 6266 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and livinginblack.com. Today on LIB Radio is Making Money Friday. Each month, the news on the economic situation within the US and UK only gets worse. Black people are at the bottom of the economic hierarchy. Today, we take a serious look at the state of our race and seek guidance from the spoken and written words of our noble ancestor, Marcus Messiah Garvey, on the direction we should take for our future. So the question on the table is, what would Mr. Garvey, if he were faced with the situations that we have today? So we're going to go forward with this conversation. And let me get these commercials out of the way so I can see what you are seeing. And we are all together here today. Marcus Messiah Garvey. We're looking at the situation dealing with the economy. It's bad. It's getting worse. We're looking at the situation relative to our group status as people of African descent all over the world. And in many ways, it's bad and getting worse. Even for our mother continent. Even though I will say, for the mother continent, things look better than they have looked for hundreds of years. But relative to what status we are enjoying here, it's still got a long ways to go. China, 50 years ago, was in a poor state. The Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, lifted China up. China did a lot to lift itself up. And now we're dealing with the Millennial Development Goals. And the Millennial Development Goals are not looking real good for African people. There are 17 particular goals that we are working on, and don't expect your Americans, don't expect the British, don't expect most European countries to really go out of their way to lift the Africans up out of poverty, lack of electricity, lack of energy, underdevelopment. They're not going to do it. China has been doing it and been doing a good job of it, but don't expect China to do it indefinitely. China is not the UNIA. I admire, I respect Li Jinping, the Belt and Road Initiative. I admire and respect them for that. And they should be admired and respected by all of us Africans. But we've got to do the heavy lifting. We have to pick a point, put our flag up, and saying, this is where we hold the line toward our future. So today, we're going to look to the counsel of Marcus Messiah Garvey. I didn't go to the bookshelf and pull all of the Garvey books off the shelf in there, but I did go to my bookshelf over here and pull out 3 of my books. Principal books we're going to look at today: Disaster Preparedness. I wrote this book months ago. Disaster Preparedness. We either have or we have not prepared for the disaster that is at hand. It has arrived. It has arrived. And we either did or did not do anything to prepare for it deliberately. So we're going to pull that book out, Disaster Preparedness for World Wars 5 and 6. Anybody talking about World War III, don't listen to them. They're not even awake. So don't listen to them. Disaster Preparedness for World Wars 5 and 6. And we are talking today from the book, The African Future, Empowering a United and Prosperous Africa for Future Generations. A united and prosperous Africa for future generations. And the main book I'm going to be dealing with today is the book released in 2000. I'm very proud of this book. And that book is entitled The Road to Power: 7 Steps to an African Global Order. Now, I'm going to ask right off the top of the bat that all of you in my listening audience today get 1, 2, or all 3 of these books. Why? Because you are a Garveyite, and you owe it to Marcus Messiah Garvey. You don't owe it to me. I just put in the work and did the writing and assembled the research. But you do owe it to Marcus Messiah Garvey to get on board something, join something that is moving in Garvey's footprints. And we are at the Black Star Media Global, undeniably moving in the footprints of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Now, for some odd reason, I'm looking at the page and it just doesn't seem right that I don't have any people listening on this channel, Rumble. That just doesn't seem right. It could be I did something wrong, but it doesn't. I can't tell if I did do anything wrong. But we're going to go forward. Could be Rumble is self glitchy today. I'm going to open up the book, The Road to Power. First of all, let me read to you the introduction to the book from the back cover. 7 Steps to an African Global Order. Along our journey through history, from the dawn of civilization to the heights of influence, through collapse and degeneration, to redemption and our impending restoration to empire, we Africans have taken many turns. Many of our recent diversions have been instigated at the hands of others, but the responsibility for mapping a course toward our destiny is ours and ours alone. We can best correct past failures by projecting a strong vision of our restoration and aggressively building upon that vision. Should we delay acting upon such imperatives? History has shown that we can expect to flounder in the wake of those ships whose captains have set sail upon a firm course into the future. Thus, we have taken on this task, this futurist task, of making a genuine attempt to construct a master blueprint for sustainable development. Toward application of the tactics which are set out in the Conscious Roster Report, we are calling on people to fundamentally change the modes in which they have come to think, react, act, and how they have allied themselves to an increasingly degenerating Western culture. Our winning formula, I just now noticed the back of the cover is discombobulated. I don't know what happened, whether it's a recent mess up, I'll get it together. But here's where we are. The Road to Power, 7 Steps to an African Global Order. I begin this comment in this book with this particular quote. This is not Marcus Mosiah Garvey's voice. This is from W.E.B. Du Bois. And I quote, "It is doubtful if there is another group of 12 million people in the midst of a modern cultured land who are so widely inhibited and mentally confined as the American Negro. Within the colored race, the philosophy of salvation has, by the pressure of caste, been curiously twisted and distorted. Shall they use the torch and dynamite? Shall they go forth? Shall they go north or fight it out in the south? Shall they segregate themselves even more than they are now in states, towns, cities, or sections? Shall they leave the country? Are they Americans or foreigners? Shall they stand and sing, 'My country, 'tis of thee'? Shall they marry and rear children and save and buy homes, or deliberately commit race suicide?" W.E.B. Du Bois, writing in the book Black Reconstruction, 1935. Let's go forward. 7 steps to an African global order. The 7 steps are: number 1, race first. That's where we're going to pick it up today. Number 2, the remaking of world order. We have found a powerful tool for understanding the major trends of the present and the future. Someone within the U.S. national security establishment that we should have been monitoring closely has allowed us to assess one of the most powerful social tools for working within the grand forces that are quietly at work reshaping the world. We can now critique ourselves carefully as to how we really stand within Western projections for the emerging global order. I wrote this in 2000. Point three, what happened to the Black Revolution? We have analyzed our greatest recent failures to secure visions of empowerment. Point four, Blacks and Hollywood, the theft of the African identity. And boy, Hollywood did a number on y'all. I don't cuss, but Hollywood screwed you up. Point 666, the internet and the rise of the Antichrist or the Antichrist. The Antichrist had to deal with, to some extent, the intervention of the internet, the rise of the Antichrist. Chapter 6, a new Sankofa for Black youth. We needed to establish a single greatest priority for organizing the masses of our people within a spirit that will require self-sacrifice. That priority must be our youth generation. Without a shadow of a doubt, we will enjoy no great future while abandoning our children by the millions to a decadent and undignified society. To the contrary, the family is the basic institution of a strong community. And number 7, the world is mine. We have formed an organization and we have a manifesto to accomplish our sacred mission. Now that we have envisioned ourselves as able contributors toward a new African global order, we wholeheartedly commit ourselves within a strong and binding pact amongst our peers, our elders, our beloved ancestors, and the divine creator, after which victory will be absolutely certain. So let's take it off. Let's go into chapter 1. Last paragraph before we go there. This is a very ambitious task that has been set upon us. Nonetheless, we proceed unhindered by fear of failure or lacking for self-confidence. Great thinkers of previous generations and the wisest living elders have given us numerous instructions. It is time that we set upon a bold course of empowerment for our African civilization. The time to act could be no better, as the very cosmos has now realigned to aid, and the time is now realigned to aid us toward our greatest destiny through our accomplishments and through victories great and small. We will restore the confidence of our people and cause all other great civilizations throughout the world to acknowledge that, quote, the blacks are back, unquote, to reclaim their place as the progenitors of civilization, the great builders and thinkers, and as one of the most outstanding and enduring civilizations to be recorded in world history. Marcus Garvey, Race First. That's the first chapter. Marcus Garvey said, "Be proud of your race today as our fathers were in the days of yore. We have a beautiful history, and we shall create another in the future that will astonish the world." Marcus Garvey. I'm going to skip over parts of this today, but I cannot skip over the first paragraph. This is actually from, not Marcus Garvey, this is from The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. And this is the answer to that often heard statement, I ain't no African, quote unquote. I ain't no African. Here's what Carter G. Woodson would have to say. This unbalanced perception of Africa is being projected from within an historic vacuum. Carter G. Woodson said, quote, from literature, the African was excluded altogether. He was not supposed to have expressed any thought worth knowing. The philosophy in the African proverbs and the rich folklore of that continent was ignored to give preference to the development on the distant shores of the Mediterranean. They failed to teach the student of the Mediterranean melting pot, with the Negroes from Africa bringing their wares, their ideas, and their blood therein to influence the history of Greece, Carthage, and Rome. Making desire father to the thought, our teachers either ignored these influences or endeavored to belittle them by working out theories to the contrary. No thought was given to the history of Africa except so far as it had been a field of exploitation for the Caucasian. You might study the history as it was offered, and you would never hear Africa mentioned except in the negative. You would never, therefore, learn that the Africans first domesticated the sheep, goat, and cow, developed the idea of trial by jury, produced the first stringed instruments, and gave the world its greatest boon in the discovery of iron. The status of the Negro was thus just fixed as that of an inferior. From the book, The Miseducation of the Negro. J.A. Rogers also makes this point. He articulated these accomplishments throughout his works. Quote, the Negro played his part before the white man came on the stage, and will likely play it again when he is gone. Apart from old Egypt, there have been several successful Negro governments like Timbuktu, Songhai, and Uganda. That last thrived for more than 5 centuries and well into the day until annexed by the British. When Speke discovered Uganda, he said that the people had developed a high state of civilization, and, quote, Chinese, unquote, Gordon speaks cordially of the fine government of King Mtesa. Stanley, in The Dark Continent, speaking of King Mtesa's court, said, quote, the most courtly European could not have excelled the Uganda premier, unquote. And lastly, from the book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, we have this reference point on the glory of the Africans. In the chapter entitled Egypt, the Rise and Fall, Chancellor Williams wrote, quote, internal stability was achieved through a process of increased centralization of power at Memphis and the reflection of the bureaucracy of the vast imperial administration. The state became the chief promoter and inspirer of progress on all fronts: agriculture, industrial development, science, the arts, engineering, massive building programs, mining, and shipbuilding. The rapid rise and expansion of numerous crafts, each an organized secret society, stimulated the remarkable industrial and building developments. Internal peace and stability provided the opportunity for the outpouring of much dormant native genius, and religion was the chief motivating source. It was during this same period that stone was first used in building, hieroglyphic writing was first invented, the great pyramids were built, stone quarrying perfected and expanded, and Imhotep became the world's great architect, first great architect, and, quote, the father of scientific medicine, unquote. It was 7.5 centuries of the most glorious pages in the history of the Black world. And in my recent book, Standard Omission, I expand this 7.5 centuries that Chancellor Williams wrote about to as much as 22 centuries between the appearance of Imhotep on the world stage, who was not the first. He was amongst the most notable, but Imhotep was not the first scientist and physician on the planet. That would have been Hesse, but he was undeniably glorified. So I write, suppose we as Africans are to overcome any distorted images of ourselves, which are held not only by external ethnic groups, but by miseducated members of our own race. In that case, there must be a systemic reversal of such perceptions. Mapping out a course towards sustained empowerment of the coming generations is the intention of our body of research as realized in the evolution of the Conscious Rasta Report. In the end, our primary goal can only be empowerment. This includes personal power, that of the family, and within the world community of African people wherever they may be located. So race first is the key. Race first is the key to group identity. And you got to believe in your people. You have to know the history of your people before you can really act upon this idea we're calling race first. You must put this in order. For Africa One, I see you in the house. Hotep, Brother Kidi, and Global Family, in and out today. It's great to have you in today. I hope you can stay as much with us as you possibly can today. We welcome you, beloved, to this conversation for Africa One. I'm not seeing, I am seeing our sister Rhonda Cooper, Ujaa, checking in with the family. Great to have you with us, Basu Rhonda. What an honor, what a joy, Ankh Uja Seneb. And we welcome all of you to the program today on LIB Radio as we are talking about what would Marcus Garvey do? What would he do? So on that note, I'm going to turn the page. We're going to share these quotes from Marcus Garvey, who wrote, and I do begin quoting Marcus Garvey on page 9. Destiny delivered into this mix an almost miraculous burst of hope in the form of a talented race leader. Migrating to America from the British colonized Caribbean island of Jamaica comes a remarkable young visionary named Marcus Garvey. After arrival, within an initial period of 3 years of intense organizing, Garvey brought this dehumanized colored people, quote unquote, colored people, to a position of widespread influence. Within the recipients of his message was reborn a highly energized enthusiasm for all things related to Black pride. Garvey's tremendous appeal with his people sprang from his ability to passionately articulate grand vision of African destiny and the great destiny of the Black race. Garvey wrote, and I quote, "But when we come to consider the history of man, was not the Negro a power? Was he not great once? Yes, honest students of history can recall the day when Egypt, Ethiopia, and Timbuktu towered in their civilizations, towered above Europe, towered above Asia. When Europe was inherited by a race of cannibals, a race of savages, naked men, heathens, and pagans, Africa was peopled with a race of cultured Black men who were masters in art, science, and literature. Men who were cultured and refined, men who it was said were like the gods. Even the great poets of old sang in the beautiful sonnets of the delight it afforded the gods to be in companionship with the Ethiopians. Why then should we lose hope? Black men, you were great once. You shall be great again. Lose not courage, lose not faith, go forward. The thing to do is to get organized. Keep separated, and you will be exploited. You will be robbed. You will be killed. Get organized, and you will compel the world to respect you. If the world fails, to give you consideration because you are black men, because you are Negroes. 400 million of you shall, through organization, shake the pillars of the universe and bring down creation. Marcus Garvey, from the book, The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. That quote appears on page 77. Going forward, we're talking about Marcus Garvey's words. Between 1918 and 1921, Garvey and his fellow organizers built the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, to become the largest Black progress organization in modern history. By 1924, the UNIA had grown to the point of purchasing ocean liners, the then equivalent of today's jet aircraft, an amazing accomplishment. Race first for Garvey was the ideological linchpin. To quote Garvey, in a world of wolves, one should go armed. And one of the most powerful defensive weapons within the reach of the Negroes is the practice of race first in all parts of the world. Race first. Not Marcus Garvey never advocated for the destruction or injury to any other races. The race first, African race first, was fundamental and crucial. Through the vehicle of the UNIA, Garvey intended to accomplish Black unification. Quote, the Universal Negro Improvement Association advocates the unity and blending of all Negroes into one strong, healthy race. It is against miscegenation and race suicide. It believes that the Negro race is as good as any other, and therefore should be as proud of itself as others are. It believes in the purity of the Negro race and the purity of the white race. It is against rich blacks marrying poor whites. It is against rich or poor whites taking advantage of Negro women. It believes in the spiritual fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. Garvey was such an incredible, Garvey was such an incredibly convincing orator that he could, within a very brief time, motivate his audience to make the necessary self-sacrifices toward the end of the unity and progress of the race. We must consider that Garvey was operating without the benefit of television, radio, telephones, or even modern forms of electronic mass communications. Nonetheless, Garvey was able to transmit to the masses through oratory and his printing craft a vision for African destiny that was as legitimate as those of intelligentsia representing the interests of Japanese, Chinese, Islamic, and European cultures. Garvey saw this moment as necessary toward protecting Blacks' security and material interests in all corners of the globe, as he had observed firsthand. All around the world, Africans suffered a similar fate, that of oppression at the hands of more organized races. Quote, when we, as members of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, talk about a government of our own in Africa, a flag of our own, and a national anthem of our own, some Negroes laugh at us. But we only have pity for them, as they know not what they do. When Uncle Sam lynches her black boys with her uniform on their back, and John Bull casts her ex-soldiers aliens who helped her in the Ashanti and Zulu wars to take big slices of Africa, then it is high time for some dull, apathetic Negroes to think in terms of nationhood. We are determined to solve our own problems by redeeming our African motherland from the hands of alien exploiters and found there a government, a nation of our own, strong enough to lend protection to the members of our race scattered all over the world and compel the respect of the nations and races of the earth. Marcus Mosiah Garvey, you are hearing me. I am reading today from the book, The Road to Power. This is the book that really changed my life for life. The Road to Power, 7 Steps to an African Global Order. And since the day I published this book in 1999, I have never deviated away from these 7 steps to an African Global Order. I have never deviated from it. Now, I am preparing once again a trip to the African mother continent, and you can come along with me. You can come along with me by buying this book. You will be sponsoring this trip, and you will be participating in it. I'm going to insist, everyone out there, 100% of you, unless you have already have this book, I want you to buy The Road to Power. Get the book, The Road to Power. I do need you to do that. This is not a selfish request. I'm going to take the money home to the continent, and we're going to prepare our first Kujichagulia village. You need the book. I think you should also not just buy it. I think you should read it from cover to cover. If you have a study group, I think your study group should get this book. If you're going to read The Destruction of Black Civilization, an incredibly valuable book by Chancellor Williams, if you are going to read From Man to Superman by J.A. Rogers, if you are going to read The Miseducation of the Negro, if you are going to read Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, then I suggest you can get all of those books inside of this book, The Road to Power, 7 Steps to an African Global Order. I need you to buy it. I need you to buy it today. Don't wait till tomorrow. You will forget. Buy it right now. Go to KEIDI.biz/CRP 2012. It's a HTTP/2012. Get the book, The Road to Power. You can always just put The Road to Power, 7 Steps, put my name in a search engine, and it'll take you to where you can find the book. I cannot state this enough, people. I cannot overstate this position. If you won't read it, there's not much that I can do with you. Unless you have a stronger set of plans that has captured my attention, then I can guarantee you I will be working with you. Marcus Garvey said, "What do I care about death in the cause of the redemption of Africa? I could die anywhere in the cause of liberty. A real man dies but once. A coward dies 1,000 times before his real death." So we want you to realize that life is not worth its salt, except you can live it for some purpose. And the noblest purpose for which to live is the emancipation of a race and the emancipation of posterity. Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Let's talk a little bit about Marcus Garvey's background. And I do have a chapter, The Origin of this Remarkable Jamaican. Amidst the peasant environment of St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica, Marcus Garvey was born on August 17, 1887. So we are coming up on Marcus Garvey's birth anniversary. He died just before his 53rd birthday in June 1940. Throughout his life, Garvey expressed that he always considered his existence to be purposeful and historic. Through the influence of his father, who possessed a library that made a lasting impression on the son, he discovered a profound awareness of the role history had in his own life. Marcus Garvey writes, "History records that slaves, by virtue of their experiences and the knowledge gained in captivity in strange lands, have eventually become masters of selves and in time enslaved others. Let us therefore use adversity as others have done. Take advantage of every opportunity. Where there is none, make it for yourself, and let history record that as we toiled laboriously and courageously, we worked to live gloriously." Marcus Garvey's words. These words, articulated by the energetic Jamaican, continue to stir us immediately to passion. I'm going to skip forward parts of this story about the deportation and others don't necessarily need to be articulated at this point right now. Today, we're asking the question, what would Garvey do? What would Garvey say? What would be Garvey's reaction to the global chaotic nature of the planet today? Garvey, Marcus Garvey, come forward, O great ancestor. Come forward, O great ancestor. Come forward and lead us today as you led us so effectively 100 years ago. Garvey was born a direct descendant of the Maroon tribe of Jamaica. The Maroons were Jamaican-born Africans who had successfully rebelled against British enslavement and set up their independent homeland within the largely impenetrable interior of Jamaica's mountains in an area known as the Cockpit. Quote, "The War of the Maroons of Jamaica is better known in history. The word Maroons usually escaped slaves and their descendants, rarely freed slaves. Once spread terror among the skirts of the Blue Mountains of Jamaica. The Maroons, whose revolt started in 1655, were never completely conquered. Modern Jamaican history, starting with the coming of the Spaniards in 1494, the British took over the islands in 1655. 2 years later, the Maroons in the hills of Jamaica gave some assistance to Don Cristobal Arnaldo de Isasi, the last appointed Spanish governor of Jamaica, in his desperate attempt to hold on to the island for Spain. The Maroons were troublesome to British authorities in Jamaica for the next 50 years. Open warfare between the British and the Maroons under the leadership of a man referred to as Captain Cujo had also united several settlements under his leadership. War broke out in 1728 and lasted for 10 years. I'm going to go forward, but I do not overlook the parallel between the war against the British in Jamaica with the Seminole Wars. Let me just squeeze this paragraph in here, if you don't mind. Many blacks with roots in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida can trace a proud, familiar heritage to this African Seminole alliance. Quoting, by December 1835, the Second Seminole War was officially launched in Florida. In the struggle against the national government and the militia of Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee, the black allies of the Seminoles played a crucial role. For many of Florida's so-called Indian guerrilla bands were made up largely of blacks. This was the case with Chief Osceola's warrior group, for instance. These black men had already existed apart from the power of white oppression, sometimes for more than a generation, and were determined to maintain their freedom Therefore, during the 7 years over which the Second Seminole War was extended, black guerrillas served as and fought with impressive and fierce tenacity. As a contemporary white historian begrudgingly conceded, quote, the Negroes from the commencement of the Florida War have, for their numbers, been the most formidable foe, more bloodthirsty, active, and more revengeful than the Indians, unquote. And that quote was from There Is a River by Vincent Harding. Very important book. Very, very important book. Going forward, Marcus Garvey. What would Marcus Garvey say? What would Marcus Garvey do? A previous edition of the Conscious Rasa Report included an analysis of fertility. In fact, I did cover that this week with the population report and the quote from Gunnar Myrdal's book, which was a study of African people in America. It was conducted under the direction of Andrew Carnegie Foundation, and it was written by Gunnar Myrdal. And I talked about popular theories on the growth of the Negro population in America have been diverse. At times, it has been claimed that Negroes breed like rabbits and that they will ultimately crowd out the whites if they are not deported or the procreation restricted. At other times, it has been pronounced that they are a dying race, bound to lose out in the struggle for survival. Statistics, both of the comprehensive kind in the United States Census and the limited kind gathered in sample surveys, have been used to bolster both arguments. The fact of the matter is, they captured our fertility, and we have to fight to get it back. As Garvey noted, well, let me skip that. Exclusive growth of the UNIA in the USA. Over the next year, and we're talking about from after Garvey was deported in 1927, over the next year, after returning to the island of his birth, Garvey worked unceasingly as an agitator and a nuisance to the British colonial regime. As Tony Martin notes, such efforts weren't appreciated among the upper class Jamaican blacks who opposed him. Tony Martin wrote in the book, Race First, many respectable Negroes, quote unquote, who had not yet learned to love their blackness, opposed his movement. As Garvey wrote later, quote, I had to decide whether to please my friends and be one of the black whites of Jamaica and be reasonably prosperous, or come out openly and defend and help improve and protect the integrity of the black millions and suffer, close quote. So after 1 year in Jamaica, the UNIA organization had only about 100 members. Garvey had planned a fundraising trip to the US in November 1915. He had corresponded with and received assurance of support from his hero, Booker T. Washington, but Washington's subsequent death delayed Garvey's trip to America. Some have now concluded that Booker T. Washington was poisoned by the, quote, hidden hand of forces hostile to his highly successful program for black upliftment. Such suspicions should not be too readily dismissed. So now Garvey has come to the U.S., and Garvey did hook up with Robert R. Moton, a Boule member who was the successor to Booker T. Washington. At the Tuskegee, as the head of the Tuskegee Institution, Moton would become instrumental in involving the university with the Public Health Service's infamous Tuskegee syphilis study. Some 428 black men were allowed to go untreated for syphilis for up to 40 years. Even more sinister, their blood was regularly being drawn to provide plasma for a patented syphilis test. These unwitting men were being used like cattle. Thus, unknowingly, Marcus Garvey was sharing his visions of liberation with the evil of oppression, from the evil of oppression, with one of the devil's secret collaborating agents, Robert R. Moton. Marcus Garvey said, "I have many large schemes on my mind for the advancement of my people that I cannot expose at this present to the public. As in such a case, my hopes of immediate success would be defeated, as my enemies are so many, and they are ever anxious to misrepresent me. I have firstly to found a press of our own and to get some work started so as to demonstrate my true intentions." Little did Garvey know he was giving it to a traitor. Like so many of his contemporary immigrants to America, Garvey moved to New York City in March 1916, where he promptly came down with pneumonia. In Harlem, where he settled, he collected the most influential black business persons, scholars, artists, entertainers, he did collect, and political visionaries of the day. There, Garvey met prominent people and established a base from which he traveled around America, visiting such cities as Boston, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. Recall that the man was at the time of his arrival a mere 28 years of age, unemployed and relatively impoverished. Among the peers to which Garvey ascended at that time were heroes and sheroes such as Ida Wells Barnett, William H. Ferris, Madam C.J. Walker, and others, including John Edward Bruce. The latter would eventually become editor of the UNIA's publications, the National Negro World and the Daily Times. For myself, this association between Garvey and Ida Wells Barnett is particularly inspiring. They are my primary male and female historical role models. Garvey is my life model for reasons that shall become obvious through this analysis, and Wells Barnett for various reasons. I admire her uncompromising crusade for social justice and campaigning against lynching, her career as a revolutionary journalist. She was so bold in her endeavors that she carried a .45 pistol to defend herself from her avowed enemies. And I'm going to begin to wrap it up. A few more quotes from Marcus Garvey. Garvey's selection of Harlem as the center of his organizing activities was an excellent choice. Harlem, however, was Garvey's words. Harlem, or not Garvey's words, from Race First. Harlem, however, was but a microcosm of the Black world of the World War I period. The subjugation of Africa by European imperialism was still a fresh memory. In response to this, an infinite number of nationalist and Pan-African organizations had come into being in Africa, Europe, North America, the West Indies, Central and South America, everywhere that Black people lived, and all looking toward the restoration of African independence. Apart from the African question, Black communities everywhere had local problems of their own. The Black man was almost everywhere in a state of subjugation. Garvey, in his involvement in the printers' strike, in his participation in Jamaica's National Club, in his agitation among Black workers in Central America, in his long embodied spirit of Black protest which characterized the age. It was inevitable, therefore, that he would be tempted by Harlem, the most politicized Black community in the world. That from Race First, page 9. And I'm going to pick this up again next week. We're going to come back with round 2, part 2 of this. But I do want to point out a couple of other points about the remarkable life of Marcus Garvey. I do have from page 23, Marcus Garvey's UNIA achievements. but I want to point to a couple of ones that stand out. 1919, Garvey's fame is rapidly spreading around the globe. By March, a youthful W.E.B. Du Bois, who is secretly being elevated to prominence by the Jewish philanthropist Julius Rosenwald, the Jewish founders of the NAACP, brothers Joel and Arthur Spingarn, and in league with the military intelligence group's counterintelligence program, is being renowned as Garvey's most outspoken opponent, a position which Du Bois also took against Booker T. Washington. In June, the Black Star Line Steamship Corporation is incorporated as a vehicle by which a transportation and trading empire is to be developed. The UNIA has expanded to the 30 chapters and over 2 million members and sympathizers. In October, an assassination attempt is made against Garvey, who sustains 2 minor wounds. The shooter, George Tyler, is arrested and then dies mysteriously. Quoting from Tony Martin, fast approaching the peak of his career, Garvey had his closest escape from an untimely death. Several shots were fired at him by one George Tyler, 2 of which found the mark. The wounds were minor, however. Tyler died mysteriously, supposedly jumping to his death from the cell where he was awaiting for a court appearance. It was widely suggested that he planned to implicate others in his assassination attempt. That from Tony Martin's book, Race First, page 32. Please do read the book by Tony Martin, Race First. And I'm going to also recommend you get and read the other book, very important book, and that book is The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Messiah Garvey, written by his second wife, Amy Jakes Garvey. So there's so much more I want to share. I'm going to come back to this chapter next week. We're going to pick it up part 2. I'm going to close with a quote from Marcus Garvey. History is the landmark by which we are directed into the true course of life. The history of a movement, the history of a nation, the history of a race is the guidepost of that movement's destiny, that nation's destiny, that race's destiny. What you do today is worthwhile. That is worthwhile. What you do today that is worthwhile inspires others to act in some future time. So we want to inspire as many of you to act as we possibly can. It is absolutely an honor and a pleasure to be with you today. We've been reading from The Road to Power, 7 Steps to an African Global Order, as we began this month of August fundraising for LIB Radio, the Black Star Media Global, and fundraising for the upcoming trip to present at a conference in Ghana. I'm going to ask each and every one of you to make a donation. If you can make a donation today, the first day of this month of August, Black August, as we have come to call it, out of respect for all of the accomplishments of our noble ancestors for this month. If you can make a contribution on this first day, that will mean a lot to me and to the rest of your global LIB radio family. You've been tuned into your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio. We are LIB TV. We are living in black.com. Tell your friends to tell their friends that we have our own now. We've come a long way together, but we've got so much further to go. And the worst part about it is that the expenses are going up our income has been going down. That's not a good recipe for continuity. In fact, that is a disastrous recipe. Can we do better than that? I would like to think so. But I have been wrong. I've been wrong a number of times. So we're going to do the best we can to do better. Thank you all for tuning in today to LIB Radio. To Tony, Dr. Tony Martin, our great ancestor, praise be his eternal name. We are ever grateful for your passionate commitment to digging into and digging up the story of this great ancestor, Marcus Mosai Garvey. To all of those who have come before us, to all of those who will follow us, follow our footprints as we follow the footprints of our great ancestors. To all of those who will follow our footprints, we are so incredibly grateful. And on that note, I want to thank you all for tuning in to LIB Radio, to LIB TV, to livinginblack.com. We are your favorite. We aim to be your favorite as we are moving forward towards our destiny. This is a wonderful place that we are today. On LIB Radio, LIB TV, and on livinginblack.com. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you.